few episodes ago. I'm looking at the user comments, and one of the things that seems to be a pretty common theme is that people that own an Xbox 360 haven't just owned one, and most of them have owned at least two or more. On this comment list, and they've had to buy new ones due to errors. There's an E73 error which has been quoted. This one user said, "I've lost two Xbox 360s in that time due to E73 errors," which after browsing quickly on Google, I don't think is a Red Rings of Death error. It's something to do with dust. I think I saw a brief mention of, or something getting into the machine, something like that. I don't know though. And then the other one was this other chap. He says, "I didn't pre-order the Xbox 360," talking about pre-launch. "Still managed to get a core though without a hard drive. I've since had 4 more Xboxes due to the 3 Red Rings of Death." So I think when we talked about the 360 and the amount of times people have had to purchase it, and you having an investment in your software and not wanting to buy a different platform, I think that was quite telling. I don't think these users are unique, and I think that was it's certainly maybe a way Microsoft's going to make a bit of money back if people are going out and buying a new machine every time it fails. So that was basically the 360. I don't know if there's any quick comment you or Gordon want to make, Roy.
There's one thing about the Xbox, since you mentioned it, is the government have been trying to take someone to court for modifying an Xbox 360, and the judge went ballistic at the prosecutors, at the government prosecutors, and had a whole tirade listing all the sort of things. So
I think I saw mention of that.
And the prosecutors were sort of stunned at the vehemence of the judge and said, "Look, can we have a little bit of time?" I don't know what they call it. I need a bit of time to prepare. And then they came back and they said, "We'll drop it."
Yeah.
So that link will be in the notes as well. And I typed up.
I mean, we only have to cast our mind back to last Christmas, I believe, when the Call of Duty, was it, the game was released, and when people were playing it online, they disconnected a load of Xbox 360s that had been modified. I seem to remember, or was it just prior to the Call of Duty game coming out? I can't remember now. But yeah, Microsoft's always had a problem with modifications, apart from the Kinect, where it appeared to start off by threatening law enforcement on people that were going to use it for other purposes, and then it sort of seemed to back away a bit, and now it seems to be all happy and wants it to be used elsewhere. So that was that story. Very, very quick. Moving on to more interesting topics. Google Street View hit the press because people have claimed it invades privacy, and apparently 3% of Germany has opted out of Google Street View and had their houses blurred off the Street View maps. This was in regards to a couple that took Google to court and apparently won the massive sum of 64p. It was proved that Google had intentionally trespassed on their property, and the judge awarded them 64p in compensation, which is claimed now by the people that took Google to court that it was more to get them to admit their wrongdoing, as in the trespass, rather than the fixed sum of money that they were going to get in compensation.
Not sure having your house blurred is actually a good sign, to be honest. When you around the neighborhood, you see the blurred house.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's not exactly the way to say everything's okay with your house.
No, it's not. I mean, that was just thrown in to say out of a fact. It was 3% of households in Germany wanted that, opted out, and that's what happened. But, I mean, at the end of the day, as I said, a lot of people have had a problem with Street View, and a lot of people have voiced their concerns. But, there's nothing to stop any member of public going down a street and taking photographs of it in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
It
would be an issue if they said something like terrorists or pedophiles or something like that, and that's kind of the automatic thing. Oh, you have to shut this thing down.
I think it's a personal choice. I think everybody's got their own view on this, and some people are happy or don't care having their house online. I mean, me personally, I really couldn't care if they want the shot of my front door or my house. But for some people, it is an issue, and I think as long as Google appreciates that and sort of complies with the removal of those photographs, I don't see a problem.
So back in 2003, I remember very specifically, I was thinking about this notion of going around with cameras and trying to map things in 3D around a neighborhood and things like that. That was in 2003, but it's kind of obvious. I'm pretty sure lots of people thought about this before. And I think Google bought quite a few companies to have this whole thing work, and I know that I think Google Earth used to be called, Keyhole maybe, or was it Keyhole? I'm not sure. And it's still proprietary. and it works kind of strangely in Linux with the Windows decorations and OpenGL. But they're supposed to fix this by now, but I don't want to install that. It just blows up Kwin when I try it after a while, and it's just like I'm kind of afraid just launching this thing now. And the other thing with Street View, I think that's also an acquisition of some sort that they had.
Did you see the odd kind of story a few weeks back about the Google Street View in Germany that people had been going round and the houses that for German citizens who decided I don't want my house on Street View and they wanted to be excluded, people were going around throwing eggs at those houses, and Google were blamed for that. I don't know if that's Google or if that's just some kids thinking, oh, this would be a good prank, you know. I don't know. But that's an oddball one. It's like, why would Google do that? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I think it's a strange one because it's almost, if you opt out of Google Street View, you're almost inviting interest in your property. Because if my house is the only house on the street which has been blurred out and somebody's looking down that street, they might want to think, well, what's different about this person and why have they opted to blur the house out when everybody else is already online? Whereas before you would have just been one house of hundreds and they would have, sort of scrolled past you in Google Street View. It does make me wonder. It could be counterproductive if at the end of the day you're worried about your privacy. You could argue that it might actually, in fact, lessen your privacy because people want to know, well, what's different about this person? Are they a celebrity? Are they somebody famous? Why did they want their house blurred out when the rest of the street's all right with it? So it's just food for thought there. Moving on to my next one before I go over to Roy and he can give some of his quick headlines. Angry Birds is now out for the Christmas Angry Birds Seasons, I beg your pardon, is the Christmas Angry Birds. It's out now for the iPhone and Android. The only reason I mention it is because it isn't out for the Windows Phone 7 as far as I can see, and if people cast their mind back a couple of months, there was a bit of a scandal involving the Angry Birds logo being put onto the Microsoft site for Windows Phone 7, and the developers got a little bit angry, probably is the best word for that. So I just thought I'd throw that one in. These are all going to be on the show notes, by the way, so if you can't keep up, they'll be listed certainly on my site, and probably a link to Roy's as well. So, Roy, over to you. Bit of news? Anything you want to mention?
Not so much, actually. I mostly wrote about WikiLeaks quite a bit today. Okay. And just at the beginning of the show, you were talking about WikiLeaks being seen as a red flag to some people, which is kind of news to me. Although I had one person sending me mails and trying to tell me not to link to it or to talk about that. And there was a big group of people who usually talk about free software, but they were also obviously concerned about freedom in general and things like freedom of speech. And but among the lots of coverage about WikiLeaks and freedom of speech and crackdown on websites and so on, we had some news about Linux, mostly the kernel. We had statistics being delivered on the contributions from different companies. You could see that the mobile players were contributing more than before to Linux. You also could tell a certain slowdown was seen. You still get some statistics also on the top 500 computers. In a new article which was published by Steven, who took over from Dana Blankenhorn in ZDNet, which I was quite happy with, because, as you probably know, I'm not a big fan of ZDNet in general. They have lots of people there who are Microsoft employees or former Microsoft employees or all kinds of people who work with these companies, and even those who are supposed to be on the open source /Linux blogs were basically Windows users who never really used Linux, and it's kind of a pathetic situation. And I found quite a few articles in Phoronix, actually. It's been extremely active recently, and it wrote a lot about Flash, which I wasn't too happy with, because I just thought, Flash is kind of becoming redundant in the sense that YouTube very soon will not require Linux users to have Flash. I mean, I'm not talking to people in general. I think lots of Linux users will find they don't need to install the plugin because they could actually just use the WebM option in YouTube. over 80% of the videos were transcoded by Google by now. And also, about a week and a half ago, I installed Ganesh on my Fedora machine, and everything just worked